Welcome viewers to the Personal Injury Law Show. My name's Tony Carbone, personal injury lawyer with 25 years experience. Next to me I've got Don Mathia. I've got that right, haven't I, Don?
You've got it right. Good evening, viewers.
Does a lot of transport accident cases. Good evening, Don.
Good evening, Tony.
And also our guest tonight is Emma Gallus-Jones, who's a marketing communications coordinator for Bicycle Network Victoria.
That's
Good
right.
evening, Emma.
Hey, Tony.
Thanks for coming on board.
Thanks for having us.
Look, it's a very interesting topic, this, because there's a lot more people on the road these days. There's a lot more roads being dedicated to cyclists, and it's considered an environmentally friendly way of travelling and also a way of keeping fit and a healthy alternative to driving your car. Now, Don...
First, Tony, in the news there's a lot of cycling accidents.
In the news, Emma, I'll probably direct this to you, there's been a lot of instances of cyclists being killed by, getting struck by vans and cars and all sorts of things, and we're talking about people that are professionals and average day-to-day cyclists. What's your take on all this? Why is there so many people being maimed and seriously injured and killed on the roads?
Look, it's interesting you say that, because over the past few years, our crash reports have maintained consistency, so we're still getting the same amount of crash reports each year. So it could be that the media is just, deciding to cover it a little bit more.
But it's fair to say that the number of roads that have been dedicated to cyclists and also the number of roads that have been built in the last few years, and in fact the number of cyclists on the road has increased. Yeah,
that's exactly right, and that's a really positive thing, because the more riders we have out there, the better it is for other vehicles, because there's less congestion on the road. And interestingly enough, riders are generally drivers as well, so the more riders out there, the more drivers that are more aware of cyclists as well.
Emma, how many members do you have at the moment with the Bicycle Network?
45,000 members.
Right, so
yeah.
that's a lot of number. I think that would be a very big number. And that has increased over the years?
It was about 40,000 a few years ago, so it's gradually increasing, yes.
Emma, what's it mean to be a member of your association?
Being a member of Bicycle Network Victoria, because we are a charity, they help support us in what we do, and that's to get more people cycling more often. I guess the biggest benefits to membership, and that's why I'm here, is because we cover rider insurance while they're on the bike, and also support them with their rights through our Riders' Rights support.
Don, Emma's just touched on something very, very important to this topic, that is riders' insurance.
Yes.
Now, the thing I want to throw at you is this. It's very, very important that these cyclists are insured to cover themselves, but what if they cause an injury and maybe run over a pedestrian? What do you think?
Well, look, if they're with Bicycle Network Victoria, they have insurance coverage, and I think it covers public liability. But for those who are not covered, Tony, and they injure someone, there's really no recourse unless they've got any assets, because there's no insurance.
But there's a real problem for cyclists that aren't insured that run over pedestrians, Emma, because a judgment's good for 15 years. So they could come into money, and eventually someone will chase them to try and get the money off them. They could be bankrupted too, so you'd encourage your members to be insured, wouldn't you?
Oh, well, all members are automatically insured, but, we constantly advocate and, make sure that riders are riding responsibly, because you need to earn the respect, and if you want respect on the road, you've got to give it as well. So it's about responsible
What is the cost of this membership? What are we talking?
Yep, for an individual, it's $105 a year.
And does that pick up insurance as well?
All membership covers insurance and riders' rights support.
And is it extensive? Don, do you know what the insurance covers?
Look, looking at it, I went through it, and there is I think it covers some medical expenses, wages. There's also
lump sum.
Lump sum. I believe there's lump sum as well, but also public liability insurance, Tony. So if they cause injury, they're covered.
What's your main goal in this association, Emma?
Well, as I mentioned, we're a charity, we're a health promotion charity, so it's about getting more people on the road. So we promote the health of the community through cycling.
Well, Tony, it does raise the question whether there should be compulsory insurance for every cyclist on the road.
Well, look, me personally, I believe they should be insured, albeit on that issue you've got a view about it, haven't you, Emma? These cyclists, whether they're insured or not, most of them are motorists as well. Yeah,
that's exactly right. So because they're motorists as well, they're more aware of the riders that are on the road. Obviously, we think insurance is important, and that's why it's covered under their membership.
And Don, what's your view on that? They should be insured?
Look, I think Look, the debate can go either way, Tony. I mean, it's been around for many, many years about cyclists and whether or not there should be compulsory insurance and maybe something like the TAC scheme or even be involved in the TAC scheme. But on the other hand, obviously it might discourage a lot of riders as well, Tony. So it is that fine balance where maybe there should be compulsory insurance so they're covered.
Emma, I guess your association's biggest concern is when a cyclist causes an accident. If they're struck by a vehicle, they're covered by the Transport Accident Act. That's right. What Don was touching on. Is that a concern for you? Cyclists that fall off bikes in circumstances where they've got no one to blame?
Well, it's interesting, you know, one of our top 3 crash causes is a rider coming in contact with a road surface. So, for instance, if, you know, you're riding down a side street and you hit a pothole that hasn't been correctly fixed, you know, you can easily come off your bike and that causes a crash. And in those instances, it's really hard to know what to do, especially for the rider. So we just help support them through that to make sure that they get...
What's the worst injuries you've seen since you've been part of the association, Emma?
I can't really answer that.
Spinal injuries?
I don't actually
know. Don, what sort of injuries have you seen in your role as a lawyer?
Look, many, many different types of injuries, spinal injuries. Leg injuries, Tony, fractured bones, fractured tibia, fibula, they're very common.
What about that real big case where the door was opened and a fellow became a quadriplegic?
Yeah, well, that was the one where the scheme was amended to allow car opening doors to be part of the TAC scheme.
And that was a massive amendment, wasn't it?
Well, it was.
Because the incidence of people swinging doors and cyclists hitting those doors is pretty common, Emma?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. It's, you know, one of our top 3 causes for crashes, obviously more inner city, and we've actually seen in the past year a 100% increase in car doorings.
Do you think that the roads in the city are adequate for cyclists?
I think we're definitely getting there. I think there's a lot of work to be done, but it's definitely much better than what it has been previously.
What's concerning, Tony, is that a lot of the bike lanes are next to the parked cars.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's really a bit disconcerting for me that you got the cars closer to the centre of the road and you got the cyclists inside the road. But I guess you're weighing up one of 2 evils. The cyclists, I guess, a greater chance of being hit if they're towards the middle of the road, isn't that right, Emma?
Well, you know, separated bike lanes are always the ideal, but it's really about harmony on the road and education. So, as I mentioned before, the more riders out there, the more drivers that are aware of it, and it's that cultural change, that slow cultural change. So, you know, the rider needs to be more aware when they're on the road, and same with the passengers and drivers.
Well, you've touched upon car doors causing major accidents, potholes. What's the other one?
The third top one is actually when a vehicle fails to give way to a rider when they're turning left or right. So, for example, one of our members, Kieran, was riding home in a bike lane and he saw a car in the intersection with the indicator on. He had right of way, so he actually thought they were going to do a U-turn. Unfortunately, they ran straight into him. And as a cause of that, you know, TAC obviously covered his injuries, his personal injuries, and we were able to do a property claim.
Emma, we'll come back to that after the sponsors break.
Cool.
Viewers, please don't go away. We've got to go to the sponsors break. We'll be back very shortly. Thank you.